In the quiet town of Elmswood, nestled between wide fields and winding country roads, the Harper family lived in a modest two-story home with a white picket fence and a neatly trimmed lawn. From the outside, everything appeared perfect. Amanda Harper was a 40-year-old homemaker known for baking cookies for school events and waving politely to neighbors during morning walks. Her husband, Daniel Harper, a 45-year-old former truck driver with rough hands and a quiet demeanor, worked part-time at the local auto repair shop. And then there was their daughter, Lily Harper. At just 16, Lily was everything Amanda had once dreamed of being. She was beautiful, bright, and full of life. Her long brown hair flowed like silk, her blue eyes sparkled with curiosity, and her smile could light up even the darkest room. Teachers adored her, classmates admired her, and neighbors often remarked on her maturity and grace. She had recently won a statewide poetry competition, drawing attention from local news outlets and praise from every corner of the community. Amanda would often pretend to be proud, smiling during interviews and sharing Lily's poems online with captions like, "So proud of my baby girl." But deep inside, something bitter had begun to grow. As Lily blossomed into a young woman full of potential, Amanda felt herself fading into the background. The compliments that once came her way now shifted entirely to her daughter. Where once Amanda had been the center of her husband's attention, now Daniel's gaze lingered longer on Lily, his conversations veering toward topics involving his daughter's looks and charm more often than they should have. At first, Amanda told herself, it was natural. Every mother goes through moments of envy. But it wasn't just envy, it was resentment. As the weeks went by, Amanda's smiles grew more forced, her hugs colder, and her words sharper. She began controlling Lily's life in subtle but powerful ways. She criticized her clothes, limited her time with friends, and made excuses to keep her at home. She started referring to Lily as too full of herself, or too dramatic, often making such remarks in front of Daniel. Daniel, on the other hand, had always been a mystery to outsiders. His criminal record, mostly from his younger days, was unknown to most in town. He kept a low profile, said little, and rarely made eye contact. Amanda had met him after her first failed relationship. Back then, he was charming in his own dark way, promising protection and strength at a time when Amanda felt weak and unwanted. Their marriage wasn't built on love but on survival. Over the years, they had settled into a rhythm of quiet resentment and uneasy partnership. As Amanda's jealousy toward Lily deepened, Daniel noticed, and instead of helping, he fueled it. He made small comments that played into Amanda's growing insecurities. "She's getting too wild," he'd say, "acting like she's better than everyone." Amanda would nod, pretending to dismiss it, but those words settled into her thoughts like poison. In her heart, she knew Daniel's interest in Lily had turned inappropriate, but instead of confronting him, she blamed Lily. She convinced herself that her daughter was flaunting her looks, inviting attention, and trying to steal the spotlight in every room. It wasn't the actions of a child, she told herself. It was manipulation. The twisted truth Amanda began to believe was that Lily was not just a rebellious teen, but a threat to their family, to her marriage, and even to her identity as a mother. The tipping point came during a school event. Lily had been invited to recite her award-winning poem at the county auditorium. Parents, students, and local officials filled the seats. Amanda sat stiffly beside Daniel, her smile tight as Lily walked onto the stage in a simple white dress. The applause was thunderous. Lily spoke with grace and confidence, holding the room in awe. But Amanda didn't hear the words. She only saw the way the audience leaned in. She noticed Daniel's gaze, fixed and unsettling, and she felt something inside her snap. That night, Amanda didn't sleep. She stared at the ceiling, running through memories of her own youth. The lost opportunities, the missed chances, the dreams that had never come true. In every one of those lost moments, she began to see Lily's face. And with each passing thought, the bitterness turned into something more dangerous. Obsession. Over the following days, Amanda became consumed. She began monitoring Lily's every move. She read her texts, deleted her social media accounts under the pretense of protection, and even pulled her from the poetry club. When Lily protested, Amanda accused her of arrogance, of disobedience, of trying to destroy the family. Daniel continued feeding Amanda's fears. He'd whisper late at night about how Lily was going down the wrong path, how she needed discipline, and how she might end up ruining both of them. Amanda didn't question his motives anymore. She simply nodded and agreed. It was during one of those late-night conversations that the unthinkable idea was first spoken aloud. Not in the form of a plan, but as a dark question hanging in the air. What if she wasn't around anymore? Amanda didn't respond right away. She sat silently, staring into the dark, the weight of that question pressing down on her like a stone. But she didn't protest. She didn't cry. And most importantly, she didn't walk away. From that night on, a silent understanding grew between Amanda and Daniel. They didn't need to talk about it openly. The looks they exchanged, the decisions they made, the cold routines that followed, all pointed to one terrifying conclusion. The Harpers, who once smiled for family photos and hosted Easter brunches for the neighborhood, were no longer a family. They had become something else, something broken and dangerous. And at the center of it all, Lily, the bright, innocent teen with a future full of promise, remained unaware of the storm that was slowly closing in around her, the perfect family. Illusion was beginning to crack, and something evil was ready to take its place. As the weeks passed, the tension inside the Harper household thickened like a gathering storm. The cheerful laughter and light footsteps that had once filled the rooms slowly faded, replaced by a heavy silence that settled over the house like a suffocating fog. Lily, once a spirited and lively teenager, began to shrink into herself. Her bright eyes lost some of their sparkle, and her smile became rarer, tinged with the quiet sadness of someone trapped and unsure of escape. Amanda's jealousy had transformed, from subtle annoyance into a suffocating presence that controlled every aspect of Lily's life. Amanda watched her daughter with a sharp, suspicious eye, questioning every word and action. She imposed strict rules, limiting Lily's contact with friends and insisting on knowing every detail of her day. Phone calls were monitored, texts deleted, and social media accounts shut down. Amanda justified these actions as necessary protection, but in reality, they were chains wrapped tightly around Lily's freedom. Lily's protests were met with cold indifference or harsh punishments. She was grounded for weeks at a time, forbidden to attend school events or extracurricular activities she had once loved. The poetry club, which had been a source of pride and happiness, was abruptly ended by Amanda, who insisted that distractions like those only fed Lily's arrogance and rebellion. Each lost opportunity deepened Lily's sense of isolation. Daniel's role in this toxic environment grew darker with every passing day. While he had once been a distant figure in the family, he now took an unsettling interest in Lily's movements. Under the guise of helping and protecting his family, he began following Lily when she left the house, watching her from a distance, making sure no one else could influence her. Amanda, instead of feeling alarmed by Daniel's behavior, saw it as confirmation of her own fears. She believed Daniel's presence was a shield, protecting the family from the danger Lily represented. But beneath this twisted logic lay a more sinister reality. Daniel's obsession with Lily was inappropriate and invasive, yet Amanda refused to see it, blaming her daughter for tempting her husband's attention and driving a wedge between them. The house became a cage. Walls that once echoed with warmth now enclosed a dark secret. Amanda and Daniel worked, in unspoken tandem, to isolate Lily, convincing themselves that their actions were justified. Amanda's jealousy turned to hatred, and Daniel's dark desires found a foothold in the fragile cracks of their marriage. One afternoon, Amanda found an old photo album while cleaning the attic. It was filled with pictures of Lily as a child, smiling, brightly, playing in the yard, and holding her mother's hand. Amanda stared at the images for a long time. The girl in the photo seemed so innocent, so full of promise. A pang of something close to guilt stabbed her heart, but it was quickly pushed away by the overwhelming bitterness she felt toward the present Lily, the teenager she no longer recognized and no longer loved. That same day, Daniel made a comment that chilled Amanda to her core. He suggested that some problems don't get better with time, hinting that Lily's behavior and influence were poisoning their family beyond repair. Amanda felt a strange mixture of fear and relief. Fear for what Daniel might mean, but relief that someone else understood her desperation. The conversation planted a dangerous seed. In the days that followed, Amanda found herself thinking more and more about the unthinkable. The idea of removing Lily from the equation, whether by running away or something far worse, began to take root in her mind. The jealousy that had once been a hidden ache was now a sharp, burning obsession. Amanda started to prepare in secret. She bought supplies, duct tape, gloves, and a sturdy rope. Items she told herself were for emergencies, but in reality were tools for a darker plan. Daniel took note, but said nothing. Instead, he watched and waited, letting Amanda take the lead. Lily, sensing the growing hostility but unsure why, tried to keep the peace. She obeyed her mother's increasingly strict rules, hoping that compliance would ease the tension. She stopped asking questions, stopped reaching out to friends, and spent most of her time locked away in her room with a book or her schoolwork. But no matter how hard she tried, the atmosphere at home remained suffocating. Amanda's mood swings grew worse. One moment she would smile at Lily with a forced tenderness. The next she would lash out with accusations and cold words. Daniel's silence during these moments was deafening. He stood by, sometimes nodding in agreement with Amanda, other times glaring darkly at Lily. The family dynamic had turned poisonous. There were a few fleeting moments when Amanda's motherly instincts seemed to surface. Late at night, she would peek into Lily's room, watching her sleep, and feel a pang of regret. But the jealousy and resentment quickly drowned out those feelings. She convinced herself that what they were doing was necessary to protect their family, to protect their marriage, and to prevent Lily from ruining everything. As Easter approached, Amanda and Daniel grew increasingly secretive. They stopped inviting neighbors over and avoided public outings as a family. The house felt colder, the silence heavier. Amanda's planning became more methodical. She marked the calendar and crossed off days, waiting for the right moment. Daniel remained a shadow in the background, occasionally reminding Amanda of the risks but never stopping the plan. Their partnership, born out of desperation and cruelty, had become unbreakable. Each had their reasons, Amanda's jealousy, Daniel's dark desires, but together they were united in a deadly purpose. Lily, meanwhile, remained unaware of the storm about to break. She continued to dream of college, of poetry, of a future far from the suffocating walls of the Harper house. But that future was slipping away, hidden behind the masks her parents wore and the secrets they kept. The seeds of evil had been planted, watered by jealousy, fear, and twisted love. And as Easter Sunday neared, the Harper family's fragile facade was ready to shatter, revealing a darkness no one in their quiet town could have imagined. Easter Sunday dawned bright and clear, a day that usually brimmed with hope, renewal, and celebration. For the Harper family, however, it marked the beginning of a nightmare hidden beneath a veneer of normalcy. Amanda rose early, as she had done every morning, but this day carried an unsettling weight. Her movements were deliberate, careful, almost mechanical. She prepared the breakfast table with a nervous precision, arranging plates, silverware, and napkins in a way that suggested everything was perfect, because the world outside expected perfection from the Harpers. Lily, unaware of the tension thickening the air, dressed in a pale yellow Easter dress Amanda had chosen for her weeks earlier. The dress was simple but elegant, and Amanda made sure every detail was flawless, from the bow in Lily's hair to the polished shoes. To any outside observer, this looked like a proud mother preparing her daughter for a joyful family celebration. The neighbors who passed by might have smiled at the scene, never suspecting the darkness lurking beneath the surface. Daniel shuffled in from the garage, already dressed for the day. His usual quiet demeanor had an edge of coldness that Amanda could sense but not quite describe. He said little, simply nodding as Amanda relayed the plan for the morning. There was no warmth between them, only a shared understanding, a pact, sealed in silence and shadow. After breakfast, the family took their traditional Easter photo in the front yard. Amanda arranged them carefully, making sure Lily stood in the center. She smiled tightly, the kind of smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes, and Daniel stood stoically beside her. The picture would later become a haunting reminder of the last moments before everything changed. The photo was posted on social media with a simple caption, "Happy Easter from the Harpers." Friends and neighbors liked and commented, praising how lovely Lily looked. The post created the illusion of a happy family celebrating together, an illusion Amanda and Daniel intended to maintain even after their sinister plan unfolded. With ASAP, the photo taken, Amanda suggested Lily help Daniel with a small repair in the basement, a task that was unusual but not suspicious. Daniel needed an extra hand to fix a leaking pipe, and Amanda urged Lily to go downstairs while she cleaned up the kitchen. Lily, trusting her parents despite the growing tensions, complied without hesitation. As Lily descended the narrow staircase, the sunlight from above dimmed, and the basement's cold air wrapped around her like a shroud. The faint smell of damp wood and rust filled the space. She could hear the low hum of the heater and the soft clink of tools. Daniel directed her toward a pipe near the back wall, and as Lily reached out to help, Amanda quietly followed behind, clutching a bag she had prepared days before. The silence was thick, broken only by the occasional scrape of metal and the distant ticking of a clock upstairs. Then, suddenly, everything changed. Daniel's hand closed over Lily's wrist with unexpected force. She gasped, startled and confused, but before she could pull away, Amanda was there, moving quickly and without hesitation. Lily struggled, her heart pounding in terror as the reality of what was happening began to sink in. The basement, which had always seemed like a harmless part of the house, now felt like a prison. Daniel's grip was unyielding, and Amanda's actions were cold and calculated. The bag Amanda carried was pulled open to reveal duct tape and gloves, tools for a grim purpose. Despite the fear, Lily's instincts fought back. She tried to scream, to fight, but Amanda's trembling hands covered her mouth, silencing the desperate cries. The struggle was brief, but intense. Daniel's face was unreadable, hard, and unflinching. Amanda's eyes flickered with a mixture of guilt and resolve, emotions tangled in a dark web of jealousy and despair. The attack was swift. No one heard Lily's final cries. The basement swallowed the horror, leaving only the faintest echoes behind. When it was over, Amanda and Daniel stood in the stillness, their breathing heavy, their faces pale. The weight of what they had done settled like a stone in their chests. Amanda's hands shook violently, but she said nothing. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow, his expression blank. Together, they moved to carry out the next part of their plan, burying the evidence. Under the cover of dusk, they dug a shallow grave. In the backyard, in a spot hidden by an old oak tree whose thick branches cast long shadows on the ground. The earth was soft and their shovels sank easily into the soil. With mechanical movements, they laid Lily's body to rest beneath the dirt, covering it carefully, as if trying to erase every trace. Amanda made sure to clean the basement thoroughly afterward, scrubbing away any sign of the struggle. She wiped down the tools, folded the dress Lily had worn, and placed it in a box labeled for donation. She deleted texts, erased photos, and cleared any digital footprints that might link Lily to the house after that day. The following morning, Amanda reported Lily missing. Her voice was steady as she told the police that her daughter had run away, frustrated with the strict rules at home and the constant pressure to succeed. She painted a picture of a rebellious teen seeking freedom, one who had likely left with a friend or boyfriend. Friends and neighbors were shocked. Many refused to believe that Lily could simply vanish without a trace. They remembered the bright girl who had been so full of life just days before Easter. The school posted notices, and social media exploded with pleas for information, but no leads emerged. Meanwhile, Amanda and Daniel continued their charade. They maintained their daily routines, attended community events, and spoke with reporters who came knocking. Amanda's grief was performative but convincing, while Daniel remained a stoic presence by her side. Yet beneath the calm surface, cracks were beginning to form. The guilt weighed heavily on Amanda, who sometimes found herself staring blankly at the walls, haunted by the memory of what she had done. Daniel's demeanor grew darker, his patience thinner. Their plan, so carefully crafted, was unraveling piece by piece. Small details, like the Easter photo showing Lily in a dress she supposedly hadn't worn, or a neighbor's security camera capturing a glimpse of the family's unusual movements, would soon ignite suspicion. But for now, Amanda and Daniel lived in a fragile bubble of silence and denial, clinging to the hope that their secret would remain buried just as deeply as Lily herself. Easter Sunday had ended not with joy and rebirth, but with a chilling betrayal that shattered the Harper family forever. The investigation into Lily Harper's disappearance began with the usual procedures: calls to friends and family, searches of the surrounding area, and interviews with neighbors. At first, the local police treated the case as a typical runaway teen scenario. Amanda Harper's story of frustration and rebellion was believable on the surface, and there were no obvious signs of foul play. However, as the days stretched into weeks, The lack of any concrete leads started to trouble the investigators. Detective Sarah Collins was assigned to the case. A seasoned officer with a keen eye for detail, she immediately sensed there was more to the story than met the eye. The first red flag came during her initial visit to the Harper household. The house was immaculate, too immaculate for a home where a teenage girl had supposedly run away. Amanda's calm and rehearsed answers, combined with Daniel's quiet and distant demeanor, raised suspicions. Collins requested access to Lily's room, hoping to find clues that might explain her sudden disappearance. The room was neat and untouched, with books lined up perfectly on the shelves and clothes folded carefully in the closet. There were no signs of a hurried exit, no backpacks or personal belongings left behind. It was as if Lily had vanished into thin air. The detective also noticed that Amanda had stopped all communication with Lily's friends. The social media accounts Amanda claimed Lily had deleted herself were completely wiped clean, and any texts or messages had been erased. This selective digital disappearance struck Collins as unusual for a typical runaway, especially for a teenager so connected to her peers. Neighbors provided more pieces of the puzzle. One woman recalled seeing Daniel lurking around the house at odd hours, watching the street with a stern expression. Another neighbor mentioned that Amanda had been unusually quiet and withdrawn in the days before Lily vanished, avoiding social gatherings and canceling plans. Detective Collins dug deeper into the Harpers' background. Amanda's history showed no prior incidents of violence or abuse, but Daniel's record was more troubling. Old arrests for assault and theft were buried deep in the files, long before he met Amanda. Collins wondered what kind of influence Daniel might have had on the family dynamic. Forensic teams scoured the Harper property, searching for any physical evidence. The basement, which Daniel had claimed was used for minor repairs, was examined thoroughly. It was spotless, with no signs of struggle or blood. However, Collins's instincts told her the basement held secrets, even if they were well hidden. Weeks passed, and the community's hope for Lily's safe return began to fade. Press coverage increased, and the case attracted attention beyond the small town. Families in neighboring counties reached out with support, while armchair detectives on social media dissected every detail. Amanda and Daniel continued to present themselves as grieving parents. Amanda's performances were chillingly convincing, her tears timed perfectly during interviews, her sadness carefully measured. Daniel remained stoic, offering little more than nods and solemn gazes. Behind closed doors, though, cracks were growing in their facade. Amanda's guilt gnawed at her relentlessly. She struggled with nightmares, haunted by visions of Lily's terrified eyes and desperate pleas. Her hands trembled uncontrollably, and some nights she found herself awake for hours, unable to escape the torment of what she had done. Daniel, on the other hand, seemed to harden with each passing day. His quiet intensity turned to irritability, and he became increasingly isolated, even within his own home. The weight of their crime was beginning to crush him in ways that words could not describe. The tension between Amanda and Daniel grew unbearable. Without speaking openly about their secret, they found themselves drifting apart emotionally. Their shared crime was both a bond and a barrier, locking them in a prison of silence. Meanwhile, Detective Collins uncovered a critical piece of evidence that shifted the investigation dramatically. A neighbor's security camera, positioned across the street, had captured footage from Easter Sunday, the day Lily disappeared. The video showed Amanda and Daniel carrying a large, heavy object covered in a blanket from the house to the backyard. The footage was grainy but unmistakable. Confronted with this new evidence, Collins intensified her investigation. She brought in search teams with specially trained dogs to comb the Harper property. The backyard where the old oak tree stood became the focal point. Days of digging and probing turned up disturbed earth, but no immediate discovery. Amanda and Daniel grew desperate. The pressure of the investigation began to crack their composure. Amanda's carefully maintained mask slipped at times, revealing fleeting moments of panic and despair. Daniel's silence grew colder, his glare more menacing. As the police closed in, the neighbors whispered and speculated. Some believed Amanda was innocent, a victim herself, while others whispered about Daniel's dark past and the possibility of something sinister within the family. Rumors spread like wildfire, making it impossible for the Harpers to hide behind their carefully crafted image. One night, Amanda finally broke down. Alone in the kitchen, she crumpled to the floor, tears streaming down her face. The weight of her actions and the fear of being caught overwhelmed her. But even in that moment of weakness, she couldn't bring herself to confess. Instead, she prayed for a miracle, for the nightmare to end without her secrets being exposed. Detective Collins, relentless and methodical, continued to push forward. She knew that somewhere beneath the surface lay the truth, dark, painful, and devastating. The closer she got, the more dangerous the situation became. The Harper family's story, once hidden behind polite smiles and neighborhood goodwill, was unraveling fast. The lies, the jealousy, and the cruelty that had led to Lily's disappearance were coming to light, and as the truth edged closer, it threatened to destroy not only the Harpers, but the fragile peace of the entire community. The case was no longer about a missing girl. It was about justice, betrayal, and the dark shadows that can lurk behind even the most ordinary doors. The days following the discovery of the security footage felt like the slow unraveling of a tightly woven rope. Detective Collins and her team intensified their search, knowing time was crucial. The community was on edge, whispering in hushed tones about what might be hidden beneath the Harper property. The pressure mounted on Amanda and Daniel, whose carefully constructed facade was cracking under the relentless scrutiny. One morning, after hours of excavation near the ancient oak tree in the backyard, a shovel struck something solid. The soil gave way to reveal a rough wooden box, worn by moisture and dirt, but unmistakably a container. The police immediately secured the area and carefully extracted the box, transporting it to the forensic lab for examination. Inside, wrapped in a faded yellow dress, was the lifeless body of Lily Harper. The shock rippled through the small town like a wave crashing against the shore. The realization that a young girl, so full of promise, had been murdered by those who were supposed to protect her, stunned everyone. The news spread quickly, igniting grief, anger, and disbelief. Amanda and Daniel were arrested without resistance. Amanda's eyes, once so filled with forced sadness, now revealed raw terror. Daniel's stoic mask shattered, replaced by cold indifference. In custody, both remained silent, their silence speaking volumes. The trial that followed was a media sensation. Journalists flocked to the courthouse, eager to unravel the twisted story behind the Harper family tragedy. The courtroom was packed, with neighbors, friends, and strangers, all seeking answers. Throughout the trial, the evidence presented painted a horrifying picture. The prosecution revealed how jealousy had poisoned Amanda's heart, how Daniel's dark nature had fueled the plan, and how they had conspired to silence their daughter forever. Expert witnesses described the psychological torment Lily had endured in her final days, isolated and betrayed by those closest to her. Amanda's defense attempted to claim mental instability and coercion by Daniel, but the jury was unmoved. The detailed testimonies, forensic evidence, and chilling photographs left no doubt about their guilt. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. Sentencing was severe, but expected. Both Amanda and Daniel received life imprisonment without parole. The judge's words were stern and unforgiving, emphasizing the betrayal of parental trust and the cruelty inflicted on an innocent child. Outside the courthouse, the community mourned Lily's loss and struggled to comprehend the darkness hidden in their midst. Vigils were held, and a scholarship was established in Lily's name to help other young people pursue their dreams, ensuring her memory lived on in a positive light. Amanda and Daniel's imprisonment marked the end of a grim chapter, but the scars remained. The Harper family's name was forever stained, a cautionary tale of jealousy, betrayal, and the devastating consequences of unchecked darkness within a home. Detective Collins, though haunted by the case, found a measure of solace, knowing justice had been served. She continued her work, carrying with her the memory of Lily, a bright light extinguished far too soon. The story of the Harper family serves as a chilling reminder. Sometimes, the greatest dangers come not from strangers, but from those closest to us. And beneath the surface of ordinary life, secrets may lurk, waiting to shatter everything we believe to be true.